let me just share my screen now. Can you all see the screen?
Yeah. Yes.
So yeah, so today I'm here. Thank you, Ambika, and I forgot Aishwarya. Sorry. So thank you for giving me an opportunity to interact with parents like me. I have, I've done this activity schedule webinar. Otherwise, also because I think we are actually going through most important time where during the lockdown, it's very difficult for parents like us to keep our child engaged in a more productive way. So this webinar is all about, how you can introduce a schedule to your child, and why do we need to introduce such schedule, and how it is going to benefit your child, and most importantly, how it is going to, promote independence in your child. So let's start with the activity schedule. So we are going to cover what is activity schedule, why do we need a schedule, and what are the benefits of using a schedule, and how do we create a routine through schedule, and then what kind of activities we should include in a schedule. So we'll go through one by one. So what is an activity schedule? Before going into activity schedule, see, we as a human being, or we as a in the role of a mother, or working in an office, or working in a school, we do have our own schedule to follow throughout the day. Since we are sitting at home now, we have our own, like right from in the morning, from you wake up, you have to, make breakfast, ensure that your child wakes up on time, your duties towards your husband. There are so many activities which you have to do till you hit the bed in the night. So all these activities, if you are organized, if you're planned in your mind that, okay, today I have to make this breakfast, or I have to make this lunch, I have to do these work at home, your day goes in a very smooth fashion. Just understand, if for us, it actually, creates our day in much more organized way when we have, the plan in mind, or if we have a habit of writing it in some diary or something. But just imagine kids on the spectrum, or especially the non-vocal child, how difficult it would be if they don't have such kind of, activity. They don't know what is expected out of them, or what they are supposed to do throughout the day when they are sitting at home. There's no school, they can't go out. So activity schedule is one of the tool to help our kids to navigate their daily routine in a very productive way. So what is an activity schedule? So it is a daily sequence of activities. It could be activities of, you can make activities in the form of morning activities, afternoon or evening, or it could be a full day activity. So whatever your child is supposed to do throughout the day, you can make a list of those activities, or if you want only for a particular period of time, just for an hour, or morning or afternoon or evening or sleeping routine, you can create activities schedule for anything. So it is a sequence of steps. Activity schedule can be visual, or it could be text or words or sentences. But in the community of special need children, visual schedules plays a very important role, because our kids learn more faster through visuals rather than words or text. But then you can always use words or text if your child is able to read those words in text. So it is not compulsory that you have to use only visual schedules, but you can have a combination of both visual and text schedules. moving on, then why do we need a visual schedule? Children with autism, they all struggle with communication, which we all know. I mean, because of that lack in communication, which leads to tantrums, inappropriate behaviors, challenging behaviors, or maladaptive behaviors. So visual schedule helps them to see what is coming in for them. So if I'm aware, for example, just imagine if someone takes you to a place without knowing where you're going, obviously your anxiety level will go up. You don't know what kind of audience will be there. What are you supposed to do? So just imagine the the situation of our kids when they're not able to communicate and they don't know what is expected out of them. So that's where the problem comes in, because they don't know and they start communicating in the form of maladaptive behaviors. So that is why we require a visual schedule to avoid such kind of situations. Then the second one is, many kids have difficulty in transitioning from one activity to other. For example, if they are, on the iPad, for example, and they love to, be engaged in your phone or iPad, and suddenly you want them to do some work. Let's say you want them to do a worksheet. Now, for me, if you see, as a person, I love watching the phone or FB, and suddenly someone tells me go and make a chai. You know, it becomes a little difficult. I'll show resistance. I'll say I'll do later, maybe after some time, because I'm able to communicate. But then kids on the spectrum who are non-vocal or partly vocal, it becomes very difficult from moving from a reinforcing activity to non-reinforcing activity. So the transition becomes difficult if you have a visual schedule where they know that, okay, this is the time period I'm allowed to play in a with mobile or iPad, and after this I'm supposed to work on a worksheet or a number worksheet or some words or whatever. Then they are already prepared that after this I have to do. So that becomes part of their routine. So they know, okay, after this I have to do. So the transition becomes very, very smooth for these kids. Then they process visual information more faster. We all know that kids on the autism spectrum, they are visually very, very strong, better than all of us. And they learn more faster through visual than the words. So what are the benefits? So if we see the benefits, obviously, it promotes independence in the child. So the idea or the target or the objective of introducing a schedule is to ensure that the child is able to do all the activities independently. So when I say independently, it's not that you're around them for every activity. No, though when we introduce that, we will be around them, but then over a period of time, we have to fade ourselves so that the child is able to see on its own, okay, now this is the activity, after this I have to do this, and they keep doing one after another. So this is how you're going to promote independence with the child. It helps in acquiring new skill. Yes, whatever you're teaching, they are going to become independent over a period of time through the activity schedule. Then there's a smooth transitioning from one activity to other, because I'm already aware that, okay, after cleaning my room, I have to go and help my mom in doing the household chores. So something like that, if you have prepared in the activity, they know what comes next. So I'm ready for that. It reduces the problem behavior. Yes, of course, when I'm aware what I'm supposed to do, I need not to go and ask someone what I'm supposed to do, or I need not to show my resistance or my unawareness of what I'm supposed to do through way of problem behavior. It also helps in self-management. So if you have your child on a routine and you have created an activity schedule and you have posted in his or her room, the child, from the time he or she gets up from bed, they know that they have to go for they have to brush their teeth, take bath, and then they have to go and sit for the breakfast. So all these are mentioned on the activity schedule. They go on, they become independent to do their activity by themselves. You need not to go for every activity ki, okay, it's time to go and do brush, or okay, after brushing you go and take bath, after bath you have to go and take breakfast. So the idea, as I said, the objective of activity schedule is to promote independence to the child. So this also helps in self-management. So now we'll see a couple of examples of the activity schedule. So this, if you see this one, My Day, it talks about the whole day schedule. So you see 7 o'clock waking up from the bed, 8 o'clock to school, 2:30 coming back, 3 o'clock lunch, snacks, and 3:15 homework, 4 o'clock TV time, 5 p.m. outside play, and then 5:30, set table, and 6 o'clock dinner, 8:30 bedtime. So this looks a very ideal one, but I'm sure each one will have a different schedule, different time for our dinner, all that. So you can actually customize according to your child, according to his needs, and according to his abilities. So these are very important. You can't have a standard set schedule for everyone. So you can create your own schedule according to your children's needs. Now this is the second example. If you see here, this is more of a, they have broken down into different time of the day. So you have this morning schedule where it starts with brushing teeth, comb hair, get dressed, breakfast, backpack, and school. Then they have something only for afternoon, which is washing hands with snacks and homework, then clean room, then they get some free tickets. What is it? Free time, which they can do whatever they want to do. Then they have something on the evening schedule also. So like your dinner time, shower, then you change into your night dress and brush your teeth and bedtime. So these are some samples of schedules, but you can actually start with, if you're new to schedule, you should start with maybe an hour's time to introduce a schedule, and then slowly increase the time with your child for different activities. This is another example where they have, again, the morning routine they have, then they have like wake up, you use the bathroom, then breakfast, then get dressed, and sunscreen lotion you apply, and then you go out. Then you have your, see now if you see here, review schedule. So this also helps the child to go and see what is next, what he is expected to do next after one activity. Please do remember, whenever we are introducing a schedule, it is very important that the child should be aware of beginning and end of the activity. It cannot go on infinity. So the child should be aware that, okay, this is the activity, this is the beginning, and this is the end. So start and finish should be clear with the child. Then only he'll move on from one activity to other. And he should also understand the concept, okay, after this is finished, and then I move to the next activity. So here it looks like more of a weekend schedule where you go to a beach or swim or walk, go to store. Then there's something for the afternoon schedule, lunch, quiet time, snack, playing outside, and dinner time. Then you have good nighttime routine, which is bath, brush teeth, change into your pajamas. Then you have a story time, and then you go to sleep. Now here is another example. This is a schedule which I use with my own child. So see here, if you see, there's a lot of other activities which we generally follow for our kids. If they have some therapy sessions, or if they go for art classes or music classes or some swimming classes or anything, you can create those activities, whatever you want. You can make a separate cards for that, and you can change the schedule every day. So this is a blank boxes where from here you can pick up and stick it here. And once the child is able to finish it, he has to go and put a mark. Like here, if you see clear checks. So either you can have a tick or you can put a smiley that it is finished, just to ensure that the child has finished that particular activity. So you can have that, or you can I generally write it in a board sometimes. So children, older children who are able to read and write, you can also have, like your snack time, coloring time, you can just write it on a board and, put a box where they can go and check, or put a cross or put a tick. Or you can make it in a small chart paper and create this kind of a schedule for your child, and start with one activity, another activity, 3, 4, and then also put a cover somewhere where they can pick up something and stick it after they finish that activity. So like the box given here, after one, so let's say one is swimming class. So once they finish the swimming, they come back from swimming, they put a sticker here that swimming is finished. Now they see the next activity. Let's say next activity could be lunch time. So they finish their lunch and then they put a sticker that lunch is finished. Then they see the third is break time. So the break is there and they put a break this thing. Then you have some art and craft class, or some household activity which you're supposed to do at home. You can do that. So you can actually, in this kind of a schedule, you can create schedule every day depending upon your needs of the child or whatever available on that day. So it is not hard and fast rule that today I have made schedule, so I have to follow the same schedule every day. So maybe I can have the same activities every day, but I keep changing the sequence of those activities in my schedule. So I can have, morning I do some number activity, and then there is some art and craft activity, and then some yoga, and then some play activity, and then some English session I do with my child. So you can have a combination of your own based on your child need. You can do something in the morning, something in the evening. So whichever you feel comfortable with your child, you can actually create according to it. So before getting into how to introduce, I wanted to talk about task analysis. This is a term which we use in ABA as an intervention for teaching new skill to child. So what exactly is a task analysis? What is the task? So task is like any activity which is given to you. So for example, let's take brushing. Brushing is a skill. You and me can go and brush how many times we want to do. We'll go and just take the brush. Nobody, no one will come and tell us that you have to squeeze the paste, all that stuff. We know, we have learned it, and we are independent of doing a brushing activity. But just imagine a child on the autism spectrum. Brushing skill is not an easy skill. It is a complex skill for the child. When as a mother I give instruction to my child, please go and brush your teeth, the child should know that he has to go to the bathroom, take the brush from the holder, he has to take the paste out, squeeze the paste, brush his teeth, all front, back, up, down, and then spit, and then gargle, wash his mouth, wash his face, wipe his hands, wash the brush, and keep it back to the holder. So just imagine this one single brushing skill is a simple task. But for our kid, it is a very, very complex task where we need to break down those tasks. For some kids, I've seen even brushing itself is a nightmare for them to make them brush. How you can make it more reinforcing? I mean, it is very, very difficult for even for us, if some task is given to us which we are not aware, for example, let's say most of us are, avoid maths during our school time. So let's say some complex problem or algebra or trigonometry they have given. You don't know how to break that, and to arrive at the answer, you have a lot of steps, and you should know how to do those steps. Until you know those steps, you cannot arrive at the answer or to find the value of x or y. So when we don't know, we try to we try to avoid that, or we try to escape from that situation where we are not supposed to do the sum. Similarly, for our kids also, the tasks which are difficult for them, which they have not learned, they will try and escape from those activities, or they will try to avoid. And how do they avoid? It comes in the form of a behavior. When I say behavior, it could be aggressive behavior, it could be challenging behavior, it could be any maladaptive behaviors like throwing the brush or lying down or crying, anything. So every behavior is a communication. The child is communicating that he is not able to do, he doesn't want to do. But the objective is we have to make them do the brushing on their own, because it's part of our daily living skill. We can't live without brushing our teeth. So task analysis talks about how do we break those skills into smaller teachable units. So when I say this brushing skill itself is such a process, let's say a 10-step process. So what we do in task analysis is we teach individual units, and slowly we'll ensure that the child is able to follow through the whole 10 steps. And by the time he's moved from one progressing from one step after the other, he's able to complete the whole step, and then he becomes independent. So the product of a task analysis is a series of sequentially ordered steps. So only in the first step, you cannot jump on doing first step like, you take the brush and then you wipe your face. No, there is an order which you have to follow. So each sequence need to be taught to the child, and then we have to ensure that each unit he becomes, independent, and then move on to the next step. So the task analysis must be individualized according to the age of the child, based on the skill level, and also their abilities and their prior experience. How do we create a schedule? So you're kind of aware what is an activity schedule. Now the next challenge is how do we create that? What kind of activities we should involve, or we should add it into the activity. So we need to have a proper planning. If I'm introducing a schedule today, I should know what kind of activities which I want my child to do independently, or is he able to do that independently, or is he able to enjoy that activity doing independently. So all these things you have to identify. Choose activities which are very easy for your child to start. So you should not right away go with something which your child hates to do it. So we should have activities which the child enjoys and look forward to do such kind of activities. So you should start with something which he really loves to do. Use simple instruction to start the activity. So you should not have, for example, if your child enjoys coloring and you want that activity as a part of the activity schedule, and you want the child to do independently. When I say independently, I have given the sheet to my child and I tell my child that you have to color the sheet, and I'm out of the room. The objective is your child colors that whatever is given, and then he comes and show you that he's finished, he has done it. So this is what we are going to promote it. So what we need to do is, you can't go and keep on explaining things. You have to keep your instruction very, very simple. Just one single sentence that, bacha, whatever, whatever your child's name, that you have to color this page. That's it. No more from this, that, yeah, falana, falana, not that. So only a simple instruction, color the page, that's it. You have to prompt initially, because if you are introducing today, for example, uh, coloring activity, your child does independently in the sense you're sitting with him, but then he is doing on his own. So now you have to fade yourself. So you have given the instruction, maybe in a table where you have kept his coloring book, and you give an instruction that XYZ, do the coloring. And then you have given the crayons, whatever the coloring material, you have kept it on the table, and then you move yourself. You have to see whether the child is able to do on her own without you around. That's very important. If you're seeing that your child needs your presence, you have to be there just for couple of minutes, and then slowly move yourself away from that place, and keep an eye on him whether he's completing or he is doing some other work. Sometimes child doesn't concentrate on what they do. They might be playing with something else. So you have to ensure that whatever instruction you have given, the child is able to follow that instruction and complete that instruction. After that only he moved to other activities. So that is very, very important. Sometimes what happens is we give the child some activity, we move around, and the activity is not done. The child must be playing or doing something else. So that should not happen when you're introducing a schedule. So when you're introducing, you should ensure that you have given an instruction, the child is able to follow through that instruction. And once he finishes, you also, because he doesn't know that he is finished, you have to teach him that the activity is finished, and then you reinforce the child that he has completed this activity on his own. So first day, let's say you start with one activity which is like maybe writing 1 to 10. So now, as of now, your child is writing only when you're sitting with him, 1, 2, and you're also prompting him. So you have to, when you're introducing this as an independent activity, you're giving a worksheet and you're giving pen and pencil and you're giving instruction, write 1 to 10. The child looks at you, it's okay. Slowly you have to move yourself. 1, 2. There are a lot of child which I have come across. They know they can write 1 to 10, but they lack the confidence. They want the mother to be there or the teacher to be there just to support them, that are they writing correctly or not. Even though they are writing correctly, they keep on looking that whether they have written correctly, just to get your nod. Sometimes unknowingly we give lot of cues to our child where that becomes a prompt for them and they become prompt dependent. Most of the children which I come across, they learn the skill, but they are not independent, because somewhere consciously, unconsciously, we are providing a prompt to our child. Even your look or even your nod, your facial movement also gives a kind of prompt to the child, whatever they are, writing. For example, a simple, identification thing or writing thing. If sometime, naturally as a mother, if the child is writing 1, 2, 3, and after 3, if the child is writing 5, you will give a stare and the child will understand, okay, he's doing something wrong. He'll immediately correct himself. So these are the prompts which makes the child become dependent on the caregiver or the teacher or the parent. So we have to ensure that we need to move ourselves from the particular environment so that the child does his or her activity on his own. And once they complete it, the moment, when you're starting, you have to keep an eye on that they are completing it. And when they are completing it, you come and say that you're finished. So they should also understand the concept of finishing that one activity. And then you reinforce them, whatever they like, they reinforce that particular activity so that they get into the routine of doing activities. So prompt initially and later slowly fade the prompt. This is very, very important. The child should know the beginning and end of the activity. So whichever activity you're starting, so you have to, you have to teach that they are going to start this and they are going to end or finish, whatever term you can use. Reinforce the child for activity initially, yes, because you are putting him in a structured way of doing his things. So obviously you have to reinforce the child when you are introducing the activity. When I say reinforce, you have to, after every activity, you can reinforce them with whatever they like. Um, it could be playing with a toy, or it could be any edible item, or it could be like giving a high five or giving a hug to your child that you did so wonderful. You can be as dramatic as possible to make your child feel that he has accomplished something, you know. So that's how you have to reinforce your child. So you have to see what reinforces your child. What are the reinforcement for your child? Before getting into type of activities, let's I would once again. This is the task analysis for a brushing teeth. So you see, a simple brushing skill is so many steps involved here. So you take a brush, you put a paste, you turn the tap, and you turn the tap, then take a toothbrush, clean your brush, apply toothpaste, then you brush your top teeth, then bottom teeth, then side, tongue, and then spit, rinse mouth, and then spit in the sink, and then rinse the brush, and then wipe face, and then you keep back your brush. So it almost 8 to 10 steps which is involved. So you start with, when you're introducing a brushing activity, visual activity. So as I said, the activity schedule can be used for one activity as such if you're teaching something new skill, or it could be for a day, or a particular time, or a lunch time, or an evening time, or a morning time. So you can create activity schedule for anything. So this is a schedule. This is more of a activity for brushing teeth. So it's like a task analysis. So you teach your child with, first, they are they able to turn the tap, or you're turning the tap. So the first step is to make them to turn the tap. So if they're turning the tap, good, appreciate them, reinforce them that they have turned the tap on their own without your physical prompt, and then move on to the next step. So slowly you are going to one by one. So the first step is mastered, then all other step you are going to do that for your child. Similarly, once first step and second step your child become independent, the rest of the steps you will do. So you have to go one by one, that the child is able to do one step independently, the other steps you are going to do with your child. Then moving on to the second step, if the child is able to do first and second independently, then from the third step you are going to help the child. Then move on to the third step. If all the three steps, first three steps the child is able to do independently, reinforce them, and then move on to the other steps by yourself. So this is how you're going to slowly introduce the steps with your child, and they are able to follow through. So this is one kind of a visual schedule which will help them. I mean, you can put this in the bathroom where they can see and what they have to do. So if this helps, you can actually, they know, okay, after this, I have to do this. So they can, see this and do on their own also. And once they are kind of mastered it, you can actually fade this schedule from the bathroom, so that, they do independently without looking at it. But that only you will do only when your child is able to do everything independently without any kind of a prompt from you. So the only instruction you have is brush your teeth. That's it. Then they go on their own to the bathroom and pick up things and use by their own, wipe face, everything, close the door, come back to you. This is how you're going to introduce that. Okay. So now we'll move on to the type of activities which we can include in the activity schedule. So I generally follow and prefer these different kind of activities. It's a combination of ADL skills, which is activities of daily living skills for our children who are able to like brushing skill, bathing skills, eating skills, all that stuff which you can, which they can do on their own for their daily living. Then some activities related to learning. When I say learning, it is more of academic. Then you can include art and craft activities. So some kids may like art and craft, some kids may not. So you have to see what interests your child. So you can create activities based on your children's interest. Then these are the activities which I would say it should be a must. They should have some play activities in the schedule. They should also have games. Physical activities is also very, very important. So let's go on to each one of them. I quickly take you through this. So ADL skill, which we have already discussed. Then we have something called eating skills. When I say eating skills, it is basically to eat independently without any support. They can eat along with you on the dining table, or agar aap if you're sitting in the floor and eating together, they should be able to eat on their own. Serve themselves. Then this is about toilet routine, potty training, bathing, self-hygiene, self-care. Then you can add doing laundry, household chores. These are skills which, if your child is an older child, like my child helps me, like I engage him in watering the plants at my place. He also helps me in putting the dirty clothes in the washing machine, and once the clothes are dried, he picks up from the dryer and then go and dry it and hang it on the rope. And once it is dried, it's responsibility for him to take out all the dried clothes, and he started folding his clothes on his own and keeping it in his cupboard. So this is one of the activity which I introduced during the lockdown, which he's doing pretty independently. So you can just see how you can make your child independent at home, like cooking, or setting the table for lunch or dinner or breakfast. Helping you from the kitchen, plates, bringing the plates to the table, or after eating, taking the plates to keep it in the sink and wipe the table clean. So these are kind of activities which will help them also, and they will learn in the process to make them more independent, self-help skills. And you can also involve them in, like my child helps me in cleaning the green vegetables. You can use them for, help them in learn cooking or cutting vegetables. Simple cooking, something like making a chai or bread toast, which they can, in your absence also, they can go and make it by themselves. So you can have something, some skills which will help them to be self-sufficient. So you can introduce those activities, as I said, in terms of task analysis. You can break down the task, and slowly each teachable units you can teach them, and slowly help them to become independent in such skills. Then we have something called activities, learning activities. This is purely based on the individual child education IEP goals. If you are with some therapist, I'm sure you'll have some kind of goals which your therapist must be working on with your child. So based on whatever level your child is, you can have some skills activities on those parameters or those goals on a daily basis. Like if you're very younger kids, we focus on matching and sorting shapes and sequencing activities, and maybe on some language development where we talk about receptive identification, mapping, labeling. So it varies from child to child. So depending upon the child's needs, you should also include where he is learning for his pre-academic skills or academic skills. It purely depends on your individual child. Then these are some kind of activity sheets you can include in your activities, where it is easy for the child, where you can give the though they can't read the instruction, you are going to read the instruction for your child and ask them that they have to match this, and you are moving out. So here the child has a pencil and the worksheet, and he is able to do on his own. This will promote independence. Now what happens is, most of the time we sit with our child and then we ask them to do it. So as I said, somewhere, we have to promote the independence in our child, because if we are around, they will do everything. But if we are not around, they will struggle even for the things which they are aware. So the idea is to promote independence again. Then art and craft activities. This is again a very good way to engage your child in a very fruitful fashion. Like you can do a lot of paper cutting, pasting, coloring activities. You can do with clay activities. Now, like YouTube and FB, you have a lot of ideas where you can use such activities to engage your child in a more productive way. So like some of these kind of activities which they can do at home. Here you can, take their own pictures, make a photograph of themselves. So they will get connected to such things easily. Something like this, all made of paper. You roll the paper and you draw a picture and ask them to put a glue and stick it on those petals and leaves. So you can be as creative as possible with your art and craft activities, whichever you want to do at home. So you can actually create a shape of apple or a book. So they learn color, they learn shape, they learn fine motor skills also improves, because they have to tear the paper, roll the paper and stick it. So concentration, sitting tolerance. So a lot of activities, it actually promotes their overall development when you are into such kind of art and craft activities. Sitting tolerance increases through this. This is a very simple activity for kids, especially the toddlers or the early learners. You can use this kind of activity. It's a simple paper tearing, and they just stick it on the butterfly, and they have just pasted it. It's very, very simple activity. So you can involve. So here you can use colors. So they learn to know colors, and then butterflies are different colors. You can introduce different colors, different shapes. You can make a tree and paste the tree with different papers. Now this is play skill. This is equally very, very important for our kids, because everyone wants a leisure skill. When I don't have any work, I should know something to do to engage myself when someone is not there. Or if you have siblings, if your children have siblings, you can make them play these kind of activities at home. See, basketball, football, throw and catch, rolling the ball, dribbling the ball, bat and ball. So it's not only with ball, you can do with any kind of other play activities which you can do at home. A simple ball, since all of us are at home, the whole family is at home, you can involve each and every members of the family to play with each other. You can as a family, you can play throw and ball, throw and catch. You can say the name and throw to that person. So here also you can be as creative as possible to ensure that at least the child learns to play, where he is not instructed, or he is free to play with anybody. He can play with his father or mother or grandparents, anyone. So idea is to promote independent play. They should be able to play, and play skills actually helps in even show developing social skills. So if you children are going out and play, so the some of the activities if they are doing at home, it's very easy for them to play with other kids. A simple ball throw and catch, if they are able to play with you, I'm sure even if they are non-vocal, they can still go and play with any other child. Just throw and catch. It's a very very simple game. Then we have some games which we do. These are more like sitting and playing with each other. This again promotes social skills, like games like card games, snake and ladder. This also helps them to know the concept of winning and losing the game. Some children it's very difficult for them to accept a loss. They always want to win the game. As a parent, what we do is we by consciously we fail and we lose so that our child wins. But then it is okay for some time, but then they also should know that every game they cannot win. So you have to ensure that they understand winning and losing, and it is okay to lose a game. So these kind of a games promote winning and losing. So you can use carom board, ludo, passing the parcel. Passing the parcel is also a very family entertaining game where you can just with the music you can pass a cushion or something and put a chit, and maybe you can read out for your child if if your child is caught in that, do some kind of a activity, some dance, or he can just say a rhyme or something like that. So you should include games as a part of your daily this thing. Then you can also have games in the iPads, some educational apps, educational games, which helps them, their learning and promote learning in them. This I saw it in one of the forward. I really like the way whoever has created this. So you can have something similar of your own. You can create this and you can play with the dice. Now, this is extremely important, especially during the lockdown, because there's no movement outside. So our kids have a lot of energy, which we need to channelize in the right direction. So you can actually start with yoga, simple basic asanas you can do at home, Padmasan and, something like a butterfly asan or Vajrasan. Not Surya Namaskar, basically, the prayer pose. So you can add these kind of things as a part of the routine every day. So let's say if you want to start a schedule, you can also start a yoga session. So in a day, first day you can start with one pose and see how he is doing. So and slowly you can add on to different poses in your child's routine. So the morning he gets up, so he knows that okay, I have to do yoga. So he's kind of tuned to it that every day when he gets up, he has to do yoga before breakfast. So similarly, you can have some floor exercise, simple basic jumping jacks, bending, all that you can use. Cycling to an extent, if you can go around. I don't know how far this is possible within the home, but if it is toddlers, of course, we can do at home. Walking and running is also like, if it works for you within your house, you can make them do jumping jacks, frog jump, this kind of a jump, where they are, I mean, their energy is utilized and they get tired. So these are some of the yoga poses which you can see. These are very, very simple poses for kids, which they can do easily. Something like this also really helps. Standing in one leg, it helps them to have that awareness of balance in the body. So you can start with, you can just count 5 and start with counting five. That five till the count of five, they have to just stand on one leg and alternate leg, and slowly you can increase the count. So like 10, 15, 20. So this increases the balance in the body and also body awareness. This really helps. These are some of other poses with the child which you can do. Make it more fun. Make it put a very light music which actually enhance the environment and the mood of the child. And don't pressurize your child to do this. Let them start with one pose and slowly move on. Don't make them to do 10 poses in the first day itself. So you have to, since you are going to introduce, so you have to go slow. You cannot put all the pressure on your child that the second day the child is not at all ready to do anything. So we always need to ensure whatever we are introducing, it should go slow, 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 and then slowly increase. You should not do everything at one time. You should start with one thing at a time and then slowly increase the intensity or the count or the time or the duration for that particular activity. Then this is something which I personally advocate or promote because the reading is one of is a very, very good habit for increasing the comprehension of your child. So always create a story time in your child schedule. So it could be a bedtime ritual. So every day before going to sleep, you can have a story book, and especially with the younger kid, you can have more picture illustrative book where the child can see the pictures and colors, and you can just one simple sentence is. It's more of a picture with one single sentence or two sentences story books. And you can also while explaining the story, you can be very dramatic so that you can sustain the interest of your child in going through the book and flipping through the pages. You can just ask the questions in that, or you can ask what color dress they are wearing. They can point at pictures, or if they are able to vocally they can say the word. So here again, you're creating a bond between you and your child, where you're creating a story time routine where your child is looking, it's like a personal time with your child without any other distraction, where you're reading a story for your child. And at the same time, some learning is happening with your child, where the child is able to listen to what you are saying and able to see those pictures, point at those pictures, or maybe give answers to whatever you're asking. So you can make it more a fun time before sleeping. And if your child likes to have more storybooks, give them the choice to have which storybook to be read for that particular day. So you can have a combination of all this, and you can use story time as a part of your daily activity or the night routine. I generally prefer it the night routine, because then you have your time, free time with your child. So that's all for today's activity, and these are the references I have taken from where I've created this. That's it. This is my contact detail. So if anyone wants to have any kind of a query or reach out to me, you can reach on this number. Thank you.
Thank you. Aishwarya, are you around? Hello.
Yeah, Ambika?
Yeah, I can. No, I'm just trying to see if Aishwarya is around. Aishwarya, are you there?
Yeah, I am. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Super. Thank you so much, Swarna. Aishwarya, you take it over.
Ambika, would you mind asking the questions, because my electricity is going on and off?
Oh, okay. Sounds good. So I just thanks a lot, Swarna. That was really helpful. I've already started collecting all the questions that we can get to. But before that, if I could just grab everyone's attention to fill this feedback form for us. it would be really useful. These feedback, we need feedback to understand if the content you just listened to, how was it useful to you, and what else can we do webinars on that could be supplemented to these topics. What other topics we can conduct webinars on. So this feedback is very important. Additionally, those of you who are not part of the NIDISHA peer support group, on the feedback form, there's an option that says, yes, I'm looking for a peer group near me. So we will immediately make sure we add you to a relevant peer group. So these are the things that will be there on the feedback form. So I would really urge you all to take the time to fill it up. It's just going to take a couple of minutes of your time. So please do that. As soon as you power through that, we will get right to the questions right away. So I'm just going to pause.
So even if the picture is not there, then slowly you can fade the picture and the word will be there. So they know the word is brushing and they can do that. So that also you can start.
Right.
If your child is at that level. I mean, again, it depends on the level of the child.
Okay, super. The next question's from Gayatri. So she has a couple of questions. One is, are there apps that you can use to actually create these visual activity schedules? And following up with that, is there a site for actually getting these pictures and steps for various ADL activities?
See, if you Google it in Google Images, you have these a sequence of steps for brushing skills, bathing skills. You can create from that. So you can just Google it. You have a lot of information on that.
Okay.
On visual schedules. So just Google visual schedules or whatever activity you want that, you will get a lot of pictures for that.
Right. And what about, is there an app that you can use to customize and create a visual activity schedule?
Because app is a very standardized one. As I said, each child has a different need. Each child has a different ability. Okay. So I would always prefer to have my own visuals depending upon my child needs. So I always prefer to have a customized schedule based on your child's need.
Okay. So Gayatri has the same question. Sorry, Gayatri, you wanted me to unmute. I'm just going to, one sec. I'm trying to multitask here. One sec. Yeah, Gayatri, I just unmuted you.
Yeah. I just wanted to tell, because I use the Avas for his communication.
Okay.
At his age, he's non-verbal, but he's quite okay with the Avas. Just started off, but he's a lot of spontaneity. So I was wondering whether if I can introduce these pictures also in his Avas or another app.
No, absolutely, because I use Avas to my child also. So you can use Avas, and since you can browse pictures in the Avas app, and you can create a schedule there itself.
Okay.
Yeah.
That is a very good option. You can do it because since your child is kind of starting with Avas app, so you can, and Avas app is all about visuals only. So you can actually, create one separate schedule for whatever activity he has to do, and then add those in that, and then, just to ensure that he knows that it is completed. See, as I said, beginning and end is very important for every activity.
Right. Gayatri, there are two more questions. One is, can visual activity schedules be actually used for children who are not visual learners? Would it be a problem in such cases?
Not really. See, visually, if they're not really, in that case, we should know what actually interests them. Are they auditory learners?
My son is an auditory learner, though, I mean, because of his high motivation for getting things, he's quite okay with Avas, he scans. But for activities which require a lot of visual scanning, he finds it difficult. So that was one of my the reasons I didn't introduce visual activity schedules, because he preferred auditory to visual. But as you said, I find it difficult to make him independent in anything. He's always dependent on my instructions.
So in that case, see, what happens is visual scanning is difficult when we are using an app. There are so many icons there. But when we talk about visual schedule at home, we generally create a chart. So you have, you will not, the whole chart is not cluttered. You have 5 or 6 activities in the chart, which is very, very clear. And the child knows and goes and touches it, and you can just put a sticker or a Velcro. At this moment, I understand that Velcro, all that availability is not possible, but then you can just create something where he can, you know, even you can use your own sticker, bindi, to finish that activity. So once he has done, he can just go and put a sticker there that the activity is finished. So you can have only 4, 5, 6. Let's say you start in the morning activity, let's say 1 hour, you wanted him to be independent, and you have created some activities. So in that 1 hour, you have, let's say, 5 or 6 activities. It could be doing 1 puzzle, 1 worksheet, 1 coloring activity, or maybe something else. And you put those activities in the schedule, in a visually chart or a cardboard. If you have any cardboard at home, put a white paper on it and stick those pictures, and put a box for finishing that. Keep it on the room where your child is, where he can easily see and he can go and touch those. Finish it, and then you use the same board to use for the second half. Maybe, you know, the second half you're using some other activity. So you have another set of activity which will go in the same board. So you need not to have 10, 20 activities in the board so that, you know, your child get confused, because in your case, the child, it's a lot of effort to scan the whole thing.
Yeah.
So that becomes a hindrance to avoid visual schedule. Okay, so he will not be interested, because if I feel that some activity is difficult for me, it's very natural to all of us. Anything which is difficult, we try and avoid.
Yeah.
We try and go to the simplest way. We'll try and do, you know, escape from that particular situation. So it is very, very important, whatever you're introducing it, as I said, you have to go step-by-step process so that the child become accustomed to that routine, and slowly he start picking up things. And always remember, whenever you're introducing a schedule, you should include activities which he really enjoys it. Only then he come into that setup, you know, okay, this is something which I enjoy, so I do it, and I put a sticker and I finish it. I get a reinforcement of my own this thing, and then I move on to the next activity.
So start for most preferred tasks for a short part of the day, and then extend it.
Yes. So slowly you can, you know, so you can have a combination. First is a preferred activity, then you add a non-preferred activity, and then there is a reinforcement. He knows that, okay, after this I'll get that. And then again, you put some preferred activity, then non-preferred. So similarly, when you do all this, slowly you can, you know, move the preferred activity and activities which you want him to learn. So that's how you have to develop the routine.
Right. And for task analysis, you mentioned the visual schedule. So do we put it in the appropriate places? Because again, seeing and scanning all the pictures of the task would be difficult. So for example, if he's brushing, you just want us to put it over the wash basin.
Yeah.
Okay. And
so
just
you can actually add on the steps.
Oh.
So what happens is, generally, there are 2 ways of doing it. One where you're giving verbal instruction and verbal prompt. So you don't need a visual prompt. Okay. So, but for some kids, visual prompt also helps in a lot many ways. So, you know, once they're kind of independent, you remove that particular picture. So let's say you are in that visual schedule. If you see, to start a brushing skill, the child should be able to open the tap first, right? That's the first step.
Yeah.
Or, you know, so you can just put the, if you don't want to give instruction, in your case, when you're saying your child is more auditory, so I don't think you need to put that picture in that. You can just say, open the tap. Though the child opens the tap independently, then you take the brush, you are helping him out. Once he's kind of, you know, the next day, when you say brush your teeth, without you saying open the tap, he should do the first step, open the tap. And then you move on to the next step. So that's how we are also going to fade our prompt, our vocal prompt to the child. Because every time you keep on saying, then he will be dependent only on the prompt. Only when mama says open the tap, I'm going to open that I'm not going
Right.
to open myself, right? So the problem with a lot of teaching I have come across is that we don't fade the prompt. Fading prompt is very, very important for independence. So if you don't fade the prompt, the child will never become independent.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to the next question. This is from Srihari. Is there any good visual? Okay, it was the same thing. It was the same question. Is there an app for self-hygiene and self-care? But his other question, so I think that's been answered already, Srihari, by Swarna. The other question is it okay to use e-storybook? I mean, virtual books, not physical books. Is that a problem?
Not really, but preferably, I mean, if you don't have storybooks as such, but you can use ebooks also.
It's not going to harm in any way per se.
It's not really a harm, but then see, at the night time we generally avoid watching. We try to reduce the screen time.
That's
so
right.
if you have a book, the child will, with flipping the book, touching the book, it all have a different sense to the child.
Right, right.
Which we don't get it on a e-screen or an e-book.
Right, right. He had another question, Shriyari. I wasn't exactly sure about the first part of your question. You wanted to ask, how do you teach doing laundry? I wasn't really sure what the context was. Could you elaborate? Shriyari, can you hear me? Hello? Yeah, he's not audible. Okay, we will cycle back to that once we can hear him. Moving on to the next person, Aarti Sharma. My son is good with visuals but doesn't pay attention. How can I improve his attention span?
Attention span, okay. So see, when you are introducing a schedule, the visual which you are going to show, you have to ensure that you are with him and he looks at the picture and then he does the activity. So that's how you have to work on it. But attention span, working on attention span, you'll have different ways like, how old is your child?
He's 7 years old.
7 years old. Okay. So I think attention span is more of activity which he loves to do. You engage in those activities and slowly add in non-preferred activity. Because what happens when we love some activity, our attention span is always there. Correct?
Yeah. Yes.
Right? So the activities which we don't like, we don't have the attention span. So we can't say that it is not attention span. At times, children cannot concentrate on one activity. They have a fleeting interest. But then you have to create interest through reinforcement only. So, I mean, whatever activity he is really enjoying, use that as a reinforcer, those activity as a reinforcer for doing activity which he doesn't like. So just to get that reinforcement, so for example, I love to play with clay, for example. And I'm going to use that as a reinforcer if he does, if he writes 1 to 10. So he knows if he's going to, and writing 1 to 10 is not a very reinforcing activity for me. I hate to write. But just because I'm going to get this, I'm going to write 1 to 10 and I'm going to get the clay activity. So the reinforcement should be really, really very, very highly reinforcing for the child to do an activity.
Okay, you mean to say that by reinforcement we can create the attention or as well as the interest of the child, no?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
See, attention is basically, it is very, very logical, I mean, for example, we are all glued to Facebook, right? We are so glued to Facebook that sometimes even we lose out on time, how much time we are spending on it, because our interest is there. But wohi agar humko, someone asks us to do some work which we don't like, maybe, you know, something at this point of a time, nobody loves to do household chores. We have to do our own household chores. We want someone else to do. But then going same work, if we want to do, we try to avoid, okay, baat mein kar lenge, you know, our interest is not there. But wherever our interest is there, we automatically we give our 100%. But wherever our interest is not there, we will not give our 100%. So, but then I know, okay, if I finish this, I can go and sit, watch some movie, all that, then I'll try and finish doing fast.
Thank you, Ati. All right. The next question is from Radhika. Again, Radhika, the questions, let me just unmute you first. So your first part of your questions, I think answered. It's again about where you can get visuals from other websites. You can easily find it on the web. The other part of her question was, how can you use visuals when you're outdoors, not just when you're indoors? How do you use it?
Yes, of course. See, you can use visuals, especially if you're taking your child outside. You can actually, for example, let's say you're going for a dinner at some restaurant. So you can create a schedule that, you know, he has to go, sit in a chair, take the menu, order, you know, so those are the steps which you can create in the schedule, and, you know, so that he knows that when he is going to the restaurant, he has to go and sit at his place and he has to wait for his order to come and eat, hand wash, and then, you know, come out of the restaurant. So similarly, whichever place you are, let's say if you're going to your mother's place or some school or some activity class, you can actually break down those steps and you can create a visual schedule for that. Or if he is going outside for some 5 different activities, you can create those activities in the schedule and say that now we are going out, first we'll go to this place, and then we are going to Nani's house, or then we are going to have lunch, or then we are going to play in the park. So you can have all those set of activities mentioned in the visual schedule, and you can prepare your child. So basically, visual schedule prepare your child, you know, what's the next step.
Super. Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you.
Hello, ma'am.
Hello?
Yeah, my daughter she's 14-year-old, ma'am, and just I want to know, for preparing this something, they're having so many different for communication, for playing, for the daily activities. We need to make the different plans for them. And can I make any template like that in the notepad? And it is easy for me to access from the laptop to in the notepad. I can paste those visuals, and if I save it in my drive, where I will be go, I can show her those visuals.
Sorry, Swarna, we are losing your voice. We are not able to hear you.
That will be more easier if your child is able to look through the iPad. And because, you know, every day it will be a different activity, or, you know, some sudden situation comes in. If you, for example, you're going for a wedding or some temple visit or some function, which doesn't happen every day in a routine. So for that kind of a thing, you can actually prepare your child that you're going for a wedding, we are going to dress up, and, you know, we'll be there. We have to wish the bride and groom, all that kind of stuff. You can just create that activities, the sequence of activities which you follow through for that particular function, and you can show it to your child. So the child knows, okay, where we are going. For example, if you are going for a travel, like I prepare my child, like to the airport, and, you know, you have to wait for your boarding pass. So there's a lot of time involved in it, you know, standing in the queue, waiting for your turn, and then the security checks happens. So you can actually take those pictures, visuals in the web and create that sequence from the time you enter the airport till the time you sit in the, aircraft, and, make your child aware that this is what he's going to do in next 1 hour or 2 hours. So that way the child is prepared. Okay, it is not something, all of a sudden you're putting the child into some place, but he knows that where he is going and how he is expected to be That's it.
Yeah, one more thing, ma'am. And I heard so many they are preparing, customizing, they are putting the paper or something. Is anybody tried this one? This method is successful for them also, something using the iPad, whatever the schedule they are customizing, and they are just copy pasting in the order like that.
Sorry, I didn't get your question.
Yeah, so many at present stage, so many successful stories are there, like if we prepare in the visuals, something cutting paste and using the velcros and all, but using in this virtual way, something using any template in the laptop or computer, taking the pictures, those things, and even the tick marks and all, we can use any PowerPoint presentation like that. Is it would be we can use it
you
in
can
that
do
way?
it. See, as long as your child is comfortable in watching that, because most of the kids now, they are pretty comfortable on iPad or laptop, all that stuff. So you
Okay.
can actually use it with, through the digital way. If not, see, the other thing is, when you have a chart or something at their room, and you're at home and you're not around, you can always have those activity lay down, and they know, okay, these are the things which I have to do before mama comes.
Okay.
So that way they're aware. But if your child is able to navigate the iPad and you have showed him that these are the activities which he has to complete, and if he's comfortable, then I think you can use that also.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
Thanks, Radhika. Next question is Poonam. Poonam, I wasn't very sure. I couldn't understand the question too well. I just unmuted you. Could you please ask the question yourself, please? I think the question was incomplete and I couldn't decipher. Poonam, are you there? Hello? Hi, Poonam. Yeah, please go ahead and ask your question. I couldn't make out from the chat.
Hello, ma'am. Some suggestion about hyperactive children that they are not concentrating their activities.
So your question is, ma'am, what is your question about?
For anxiety of a child.
Right. So is there any specific activity that you're asking about? What is specific question?
Yes, ma'am. It is based on ADL or any functional activities or academic activities. They are not concentrating.
Okay.
See, you're saying your child is not able to concentrate on any activity. That's what you're asking?
Yes, ma'am.
So, see, the thing is, as I earlier discussed, you have to create interest for that particular activity. How will we create interest? You have to have something really reinforcing for that activity. So if you have a very good, highly reinforcing thing, it could be, as I said, it could be some kids. For example, for my kid, the reinforcement is more of praise to him, because ultimately whatever reinforcer you use, it has to be faded. You can't have your child dependent on reinforcement always. So the natural reinforcers are like the general reinforcer, like, wow, you did a good job. This anyone can say, right? So whatever reinforcement we are using, ultimately we have to, transfer them to generalized reinforcer, like good job, all that praise. We all need praise. We all need, someone appreciate our work, we feel good, right? The same thing with our child when we are introducing an activity which he is not very much interested. You should have something really highly reinforcing that he should look forward to do that work. That's how, we introduce any new skill to the child. Otherwise, why will I do that work? See, for us, we don't have a choice. हमको खाना बनाना ही है, अगर पसंद है या नहीं पसंद है, right? We have to feed ourselves, correct? But with our child, you have to really have something highly reinforcing for them to do any activity. And once they learn to do that activity, then we slowly fade the reinforcement. By that time, the activity is already learned. Then it becomes easier for the child because he's already been doing every day. So obviously by the time, let's say you start one activity today is the first day, and I've really kept a very good reinforcer, and the child in the mind that, okay, I'm going to get this if I'm going to finish this. So he finished it because he doesn't know how to do it, but then he is trying to learn and he's grabbing that reinforcement. Second day, again, you know, he'll find little difficult to do it, but then he will do it because he's going to get the reinforcer. Third day, you need not to say also, he might do it by himself and he'll get it. Fourth day, again, fifth, sixth, seventh, the days goes on, he is actually becoming competent in that particular activity. Then it doesn't become whether interest or not interest. So he has learned it, and then what you do is you're going to slowly fade the reinforcement. So let's say if you're making the child to do 5 minutes and then giving the reinforcement. So let's say for 5 days you're using only 5 minutes and then reinforcing. Sixth day, what you're doing is the child has already learned to do the activity. So you have improved or increased the time limit. So 5 minutes to 7 minutes or 8 minutes. And then you're giving the reinforcement. And then maybe, you know, another couple of days you're going in that same routine. And then after that, you're increasing it to 10 minutes. So what happens? The child is increasing the time span of that work, but reinforcement is also getting faded. So it's like that. You have to develop the routine and duration of the time of the activity. For example, if you're doing first day, after 1 hour only I'm going to do, I'm writing it to you, he will not do. So that's why I said you have to introduce in a small this thing. So where the child should not feel, you know, he should not get bored out of the thing. What the heck I'm going to do? So if just imagine a work which you have to do for 1 hour and 5 minutes, which will you prefer to do?
I prefer his choice, what he wants to do.
So if my question is the same work, it's a boring work, but you have a choice that after 5 minutes you have reinforcement, but after 1 hour you have reinforcement. Very high. So the child will, what the child will prefer, he'll do that 5 minutes wala thing.
Yes.
Right? Because he knows after 5 minutes I'll get this. So that's more easier for me.
Yes.
So I will also see which is more easier for me. So that is why I said when you're introducing something, you cannot expect, you have to, you know, maintain the interest of the child. If the child interest loses, then the child will not learn. Okay, so you have to slowly introduce and increase the time duration.
Thank you.
Okay. The next question is from Amit, but I don't think he's on call anymore. Amit? Okay, so the next question is from Amrita. Is there any way to reuse the pictures used in the schedules? I mean, making new visual schedules on daily basis is not possible with limited resources during this lockdown.
You can use, see, as I said, whatever activity which you want to introduce or the child is already doing, because when you are introducing a schedule, you will be taking the activities which he's already doing. Okay, that's how you're going to create that interest, and then non-interest activity you will include that. So you can use the same thing, or you can do mix and match. It depends, varies from child to child. See, certain activities we have to do every day. So for example, play skill. You can have a one game. See, I generally, how I follow is, for example, if I'm teaching a new skill or new, like during the lockdown, I started with my child carom board. Okay, so every day he was not even able to strike. He doesn't know how to hold the hand and strike the, you know, put the pressure and strike. So for almost 2-3 days, I was sitting with him. I was just physically prompting him to hold like this and then put a, you know, he has to move this finger to strike the coin and strike with the striker. Fourth day, he started automatically doing it. And now, like, it's been a month, we are kind of playing every day with each other. So he started aiming at the coin and putting it in the hole also now. So So every day, I mean, I started with, 10 strikes a day, and we moved to 50 strikes so that his strike becomes stronger and he knows how much pressure he has to put to, on the striker to move the coin. So you have to slowly, and then it becomes part of it. And then he is kind of like every day we play with carrom board. So he has learned a new thing. And now I have to move on to the rules and regulations of the game that, I mean, so that's how you have to introduce.
Amrita, do you have anything else to ask or add?
Yeah, actually, I understood what Swarna ma'am explained me, but my question was like during this lockdown period, I have very limited resources like the stationery material. So my
Okay.
question was, I mean, is there any way to prepare the schedule and then how, I mean, how do I, if I'm preparing a schedule for, today, for Tuesday. So if I want new schedule for Wednesday, like tomorrow. So how should I stick? I should stick the visuals on a book and then, or I should stick the visuals on the wall. If I stick it, then it's used. I cannot reuse those pictures. So my
Okay.
question is how can you reuse the visuals every day to make a plan every day? So
So
this,
initially, for example, now during the lockdown, and if you're first time a visual schedule user,
yes,
so I
yes.
would suggest you to stick to those activity for at least for a week. And the finished part is where you can put a sticker, or you can put sticker in terms of bindi and all. So those things you can keep it planned, because if you are putting a bindi, you can always remove the bindi, right?
Because right now I'm really running very short of resources. I really don't have a any stationery material. I'm not having. I simply have a blackboard. That's it. I mean, no storybooks, no pictures. I don't have anything. And my child is 3 years old, so he cannot read, but he is a good visual learner. So like
So
how,
you can use the phone.
okay, that was my main question. Okay, I can use
You
the
can use
phone.
phone. So in phone anyway, you can have different visuals, I mean, so every day you can just show that activity 1. So this is
Okay.
activity 1, and you create a card 1, number 1, so that the child can relate that this is activity 1. And
Okay.
1 is, let's say, you have something called putting ABCD slots, right? A
Yeah,
board game.
yeah.
So you can,
Hmm.
what you can do is number 1, you write it on that wherever you're keeping it, put 1 and put that board under that. Then you put number 2, and then under that you can put maybe number wala board, and then number 3, you have some puzzle. Number 4, you have some coloring sheet. So what you can do is activity schedule. You just put 1, 2, 3, 4, and again in front of 1, he knows you have kept a 1 number card on the board, right? So the child knows that okay, 1 activity is over. After this, you go and put a tick on that paper. You might have a white sheet, so you just put activity 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3, 4 is you're showing the child that 1
On the
is
phone.
board number, and you have to keep 1 number there, which is a very simple way of doing it. So you can write in simple piece of paper number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. So instead of going actual pictures, we are numbering them.
Okay.
Okay. So that way you can use, the child knows, okay, number 1 उसमें लिखा हुआ है, number 1 is alphabets का मुझे डालना है, so I go and put it that one, and I tick it. Number 1 activity is over. Number 2 is what? There's some puzzle. So I finish that puzzle, and I go and put a tick on it.
Okay.
Tick or something. You can just make your child to just tick it or color it or something,
Okay, fine. Thank you, ma'am, so much.
Thank you.
Okay, the next question is from Shushma. Ma'am, my kid is non-verbal and has poor identification. He is 5.4 years. Can I start story reading? Please help me with a few books which are easy to understand.
See, you can, if he's poor at identification, then you have to work on the receptive identification with your child. That is one. And second is for reading, you can always do a lot of story books. there are simple series of books. You can just write an email to me. I'll send it across. So you can pick up those kind of books where you have simple plain instruction, one single sentence, and more of picture book. So you can read book irrespective whether the child is vocal or non-vocal. At least he'll understand and he will point. So if he is not pointing, so if you're asking question and you just for example, there's some story on crow or whatever it is, and you say, where is the crow? Show me the crow. The child doesn't understand. You hold his hand and point at the crow, and then say crow. So let's say if you are reading that book for 1 week, I'm sure at the end of the week the child will be able to understand what a crow is.
Yeah, I don't think she's on call, but so we can move on to the next question. Prerna, my son is still not able to spit. I don't know what activities to be done so that he can do it. I'll just done.
Oh, spitting. Is oral issues with him?
Prerna, we have unmuted you if you want to give.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
No, I don't. Yeah, he's not even able to blow the candle, and you know, like he just tries to take a very deep breath when I ask him to blow the candle. And yeah, and like he spits the water out, but he is not spitting the toothpaste.
Or maybe he's liking it.
Yeah, but then he has got a certain blood disorder condition, so I am not able to use a very like another kind of toothpaste for him, you know. So but how much ever I try to tell him and show him.
Okay, so I think then you have to really check with the doctor for that. I mean, the taste, something which, you know, I mean, taste. See, one is if he knows spitting, then he should spit, right?
Yeah.
But here the case is he knows spitting, but then he's not spitting because the flavor of that paste is he's liking it and he's swallowing it.
Yeah.
So maybe you can try with some other flavor which is, you know, bitter or something, and just do a test and try it whether he's still taking the paste or he's spitting it. Then you will know, is it because of the flavor he's eating, or is it he doesn't want to do.
Okay, but then if I checked because I am here in Germany, so if I want to really check if he has oral motor issues, like whom should I ask? Is his occupational therapist or his pediatrician?
I think oral motor issues, you can, one is you can actually check with the dentist, pedodontist, and also with the occupational therapist.
Okay, okay, thank you.
They are the best people to help you on this. Because if it is oral sensory, then you have to really create a lot of desensitize. You have to sensitize his mouth. You know, where he's, you can do a lot of gum massages to him.
Okay.
Like with honey, put a gloves and put honey, you know, massage here, and the jaws, the gums. So that way, you know, I mean, the sensitivity of the paste, you know, the texture of the paste, maybe he might be liking it.
Okay.
So you need to find out what exactly the cause for not spitting. That's what I said. So just find out what is the cause. So once you know the cause, then we can work on the intervention.
Okay, okay. Thank you so much. I'll do that.
You're welcome.
Okay, the next question is from Mamta. How to make a child use toothpaste or shampoo in required quantity to avoid wastage?
Yeah, that's a good question. So it's basically, you know, I mean, so you start with when you're introducing putting paste, you should not give the whole paste. Maybe you can start with, you know, they should know that they have to squeeze only limited to the brush itself. You can't, they can't squeeze the whole thing on the brush. So that you need to model to the child. You need to model it that they have to just have one squeeze and that is enough for the day. So that you have to ensure when you are introducing squeezing the paste, they should not squeeze the whole paste. Keep a smaller tube with the child when you're introducing, because the child, that is also kind of activity which the child might like it, where they squeeze the paste and they start playing with the paste. So ensure that you keep a smaller tube and put just one squeeze, and then it comes on the brush, and then immediately close the paste and keep it. So follow this and don't allow the child to play with the paste. And again, for shampoo also, you have that shampoo lid. So pour the shampoo in the lid, and they know that this much the quantity they have to use. Instead of pouring it on hand and roughly estimating how much I would need, give them a measurement like you have for the syrups, the medicine syrup you get, those small dhakkan kind of thing. So you can pour it, you can use such kind of a measurement caps in the bathroom for the child to know that he can use only this much shampoo to wash his or her hair.
Thank you, I'll try that.
Hello?
Hello, Mamta. Yeah, would you like to add something? Hello? Okay, the next question is from Jay Lakshmi. How to take a child to object level to picture level to make them understand both are the same when they have vision issues?
Object level to picture level.
Yeah, Jay Lakshmi, I have unmuted you. If you could give Swara some context.
Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, she is able to identify the objects very well, but when we come to make her sit for a picture reading, she is not showing much interest. She is having attention problem and cognitive issues also, vision also, and she is not able, she is not interested to wear the specs also. Sometimes she will rarely wear.
Okay.
So to make her understand the object banana, the real or artificial, anything is that is the thing in the picture is she has to identify that.
No, you mean to say she is able to identify the real picture, but she is not able to identify on the book.
Yeah, I'm using the picture cards. Books I have not yet started.
Okay, so on the picture like flashcards, she is not able to identify.
Banana, I think she will understand. Daily we are using, but rest of the cards we are introducing five cards daily, but she is not showing much interest to that.
Okay, so you are doing a receptive identification trial with her.
Not by eye pointing or hand pointing. She has to answer me. No, but she is not doing that. So how to make her do?
She's a vocal child.
I have to know. Yeah. No, non-verbal.
It's not non-verbal. It's non-vocal.
Yeah. Non-vocal.
See, non-verbal, there are a lot of confusion on that. When you say non-verbal, it doesn't mean that, they can't communicate. Non-verbal could be, they can communicate through gestures.
Yeah.
No, only we say non-vocal means when they are not able to say anything, but still they can communicate as, it is not necessary that I have to use only speech as a method of communication. I can use sign language, I can use other augmentative alternate communication.
By movement, she will do whatever oral instructions we give. She is walking, so she will go and do whatever we say. To go to the bathroom, brush your thing, or put it in the laundry basket. Anything she will follow. But for picture level, how to make her to bring to the thing, to understand this is the thing in the object.
What you do is first start with only flashcard identification. Then flashcard to flashcard matching cards are there, no? Yeah. Identical matching. That you do, and then move on to the actual object to picture matching.
Okay.
That's the sequence you follow.
Okay. Is there any suggestions for making her wear specs? She's not like to bindi, anything extra fittings, so she doesn't like to have it.
No.
How to make her wear the specs regularly?
Achha, she has a specs. Okay.
Yeah.
So she is not wearing the specs.
Yeah, her power is +9, but we are using only +6 because it's much weight. She can't wear initially, so he has prescribed only +6.
See, again, reinforcement only you have to do. So you start with 5 minutes. How much time she wears?
While eating, she will wear.
Okay.
She will look and eat because she's interested in that.
See, so what you have to do is you have to really reinforce her for only wearing the specs. Okay, so you start a time that if you wear for 5 minutes, then I'll give you that. So slowly you increase the duration, and over a period of time she'll get habitual to wearing that specs. That's how you have to include that. So maybe something which she loves to eat, you can keep that as a reinforcer and tell her only if you're wearing it for 5 minutes. So keep a timer also so that she knows, okay, 5 minutes, I can, only when the timer sets, then I can have that reinforcer, and I have to wear till the timer goes.
Okay. This is the question.
Yeah. Okay, the next question is from Sukwant Arora. How to help kids remembering their way to different places like tuition, music class, etc.
How to what?
How to remembering their way to different. I think the question is how to teach them to remember the ways to go to certain places. Sukwant, I've unmuted you. If you could give more context to the question. Hello?
Hello?
Hello, can you hear me, ma'am?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, ma'am, actually the problem which I'm facing is my daughter is 13 years old. She forgets her ways. Like if she's going to her tuition, she'll forget. I always have to drop her. Whenever she's shifted to a new class, like she's promoted from 6 to 7, 7 to 8, so what happens is it takes some time for 10 days or 12 days to get her used to her way to the class.
Okay.
So how can we help the child with this problem? Like directions, she is very confused with where to go. Even if I say samne se utha lo, so she'll take some time to understand what is samne, and even though she won't show it, but her face tells that she is a little confused in that.
I wouldn't say it is confused, because the child needs time to process the information what you're giving.
But ma'am, then in school it becomes difficult. Like if she has to go alone to the library, to the music class or anywhere, then somebody has to support her.
So do you have any kind of a visual there to help her, that you can make the directions like the way we use a Google map for our own direction?
I have tried many times using left, right properly mentioned on the paper. Like you go to a shop, so how do we go? We go from right side to our house, and everything I explain in a very simple manner. But still, I find her not very understanding the concept of her ways. How to help her for that?
See, I think you start with one simple activity, like going from your place to some other place, and reinforce her that she did a good job by going on her own, and then slowly once she's kind of independent in one way to go, then slowly introduce the other.
Okay.
So first is like, as you're saying, from home to school, for example.
Yeah.
So focus only on that. Rest of the things you have to help her. But once she's kind of independent and she knows that I'm pretty independent, then move on to the second one. So let's say from in the classroom, from one class to another class. So maybe you have to work with the teacher along with your daughter to ensure that she gets some cues at different places so that she can navigate in the school.
We do that, ma'am, every year. But the problem is now when she is 13 years, she is expected to at least now find out her classes where she's in her school since nursery. So I really don't understand why this happens, that she doesn't remembers her ways to go to different classes from her class, because they are not having all the classes at one place. So at times they have to go to music class, at times they have to go to for PT or for anything else. So sometimes she gets lost. How to help her with that?
See, I really find this, see, if I have something of visuals, I think it will help me. But I don't think, you know, I mean, the child is not able to process that. It's a difficulty with her, which we have to accept it, you know.
Okay.
Because the only way which I feel is if I have visuals that I know in my hand, or like a GPS, which really helps me to go on different direction, because people like us also get lost in a lot of times where maybe, you know, we would have gone in the same place couple of times. Like for my husband, I mean, I'm a person who always connect things with the places. So if I see that thing, I know that we have reached that place. But for my husband, like, even though he would have gone in the same road 10 times, he will not know. He still need help or, you know, directions to be told. So I think it's the way we have been made, I think.
Okay. Ma'am, is it possible that it is also because of lack of interest in exploring, in finding out new things or something like that?
See, I won't say it is lack of thing, because you're saying in the same school she's been there from nursery, right?
Yeah.
So out of
So like that
routine,
is what happens, like if her music, she likes music, so music is a favorite, so she would go there easily at times. Initially she used to get confused with that way also, but later on she was fine going there because she is interested to learn music. But in other classes, if I talk about, so she has to find out her way. She seems to be lost.
then use reinforcement. Whichever class she goes and correctly, ask the teacher to praise her for that.
Okay.
You know, so reinforcement works. So let's say, I don't know what's a reinforcement, because I can't really comment on it until I assess the child. So you have to really understand which are the places where she goes on her own, which are the places where she needs a lot of prompt. So we really need to study the case, and then you can do the intervention.
Okay, ma'am. Okay.
Now, as you're saying, music class, she's able to find out. That means music interests her, and then she's, you know, she's looking forward to go to that class.
Yes, yes.
So other classes, she's not interested and she's trying to avoid and escape. So she might be knowing, she might be escaping it, but not going to that particular class. So we need to have some more in-depth details to create, you know, do the intervention for that.
Okay, okay, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
So
you so much, ma'am.
we just have 2 more questions and then we'll wrap up.
We'll close because it's already 5:10.
Yeah.
I have to leave.
Okay, just 2 more questions. If the parents could keep it short. Preeti asks, you've been suggesting activities with time bound like 5 minutes, so certain times it is done. I have a child who has trouble in transitioning, resist stopping an activity and moving over. How can these schedules be adapted to her?
So see, transition is one of the you know, issues where a child face problems, because moving from a reinforcing activity to non-reinforcing activity is really a trouble. But you have to ensure that with visual schedules, they know whenever you know that the child is going to create issues or show problem behavior, you have to show the schedule very clearly that after this he has to do this, you know, or he has to go for this class. And especially what you do is keep a very highly reinforcing thing when you know that after this activity he doesn't like to go to the other activity. So especially for that particular period, keep a very highly reinforcer in hand, so that the child easily transit from one activity to the other.
And Swarna ma'am, thank you for the answer.
Yeah.
The transition from, there's some activities that, for example, my daughter's into music and art.
Okay.
So she really likes to, attention span is not her issue because you make her sit even for 2 hours, she can do an activity.
Very good.
But the transition from making her stop something she really likes and move into something else becomes so because of this, what happens is I'm not able to cover a lot of things in the same day, because she tends to kind of extend it a little bit. And she like there was another parent who said about spatially they find it a little difficult to figure out when an instruction is based on directions or an activity based on directions is going to be, or finding things is going to be very difficult for her. So if I actually plan an activity that is, similar to something, then she won't actually show resistance, like I won't get into the activity, but can I do this a little longer?
Which is perfectly fine. Sometimes we tend to, so what you have to do is use a timer there. So, fix the time, what you want, whatever activity she is doing, which she loves it, fix that time and make her associate that once the timer goes off, her activity is over.
The time is over, okay. All right.
So, then the child, then you need not to come into picture. She'll automatically know once the timer is over, then I have to move on to the next activity. And in case if she says, okay, can I do little longer? So maybe you can increase the time for another 2 minutes or 3 minutes or 4 minutes, whatever you feel like. Another just for her satisfaction, so that her choice is also approved from your point of view. So you can just put another 2 minutes or 3 minutes, extend the timer, and then say, see, I accepted your demand, now you accept mine.
Oh, brilliant. Okay. And when we are actually trying to give a time-bound activity, like I think the timer will really work, because I've used it before when it comes to especially media time. If they get a media time, I give it along with the timer. When the timer goes off, you switch off the phone.
So it is kind of prepare them. It is like a kind of, it's again a cue that yes, its time is over, now I have to do it. So, but the thing is, you have to strictly follow it. Even if there is one day deviation in it, then they learn to manipulate it. Okay, so that is very, very important. Whatever you're doing it, stick to it. Whatever instruction you're giving, ensure that they are following it. And then you give the other activity.
Okay. And the activities you've said, there's a small amount of time.
I'm sorry, can I cut you off because we have limited time and we still have one more question? I'm so sorry. Okay, Nabila, this is the last question. Due to the lockdown, social interaction of my child is almost zero. Is there any way or tips to maintain social interaction? Is there any problem to create social interaction after the lockdown? And my child always likes to tell stories and I have to listen. Earlier, I used to tell her stories and she listens. Now she does not like to listen to me. Any tips?
Okay. See, social interaction is only when you have people around. So you can create that within your family. You can have a FaceTime with your friends or relatives, or through WhatsApp call or Zoom call, where they can, if your child likes to say and talk about stories, let her, call up her cousins or grandparents and share her story. So that way she gets connected to other people and the momentum is maintained with it. And like as you said first, she was listening to your story and now she wants you to listen to her story. So you can just play a game kind of a thing. You say that now your turn, you say the story, I'm going to listen. and you can ask me questions. I will answer you, and then after that you create your story and then tell her that now your turn. So this will also help her to know the turn taking, that I have to wait for my turn, and once your turn comes, then I have also need to listen to your what you are saying and whatever question you are asking. So make it more kind of a play with her when you're doing such kind of storytelling activities.
Yeah, thank you very much. We parents are all watching this. And one more thing, please. Her during the lockdown, her flapping is increased. Is there any way to reduce the flapping of the child?
See, as a behavior analyst, I should know why she is flapping. So we need to find out what is the reason for flapping. So unless until we know the causes for flapping, is it
just because of sometimes she tried to reduce her energy, to lose her energy, so she jumps and flaps. The experts say that to reduce her energy, sometimes she flaps.
So if you know that she is doing for reducing energy, then you should use more of physical activity with her.
Right.
That way, she can channelize that energy. See, most of the kids, if, all this automatic behavior, we call it as, where we don't need any other social being to, affect our behavior. So hand flapping could be, though it looks like very automatic behavior that I'm doing hand flapping on my own, I don't need anybody else for me to trigger that behavior, then we need to really find out why she's doing. And as you said, you're saying that it is for energy, this thing, then you have to ensure that she is physically exhausted for the day so that the flapping comes down.
Thank you very much.
Because all this behavior thing, I will not be able to answer unless until we assess the causes or functions of behavior.
Right, right.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Swarna. Aishwarya, that's it?
Yeah, that was the last question.
That was the last question.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambika.
Yeah, thank you so much for your time. But I think this is definitely a really, really important topic, because we do get a lot of queries about specific behavioral issues where I think, like you rightly, the last question was so relevant, where without understanding that actual root cause, it's often, we do get a lot of queries on our chat tool too, where, what is the solution to head banging, or what's the solution to hand flapping?
Yeah, see, most of them, even as a behavior analyst, we cannot really answer that question unless until we understand the behavior. And understanding the behavior is not just one time he did it. We need to know when it is happening, how long it is happening, with what, with whom it is happening, where it is happening. So there are so many factors involved in it in terms of defining a behavior and understanding the behavior. So basically, especially behavior where we want to reduce inappropriate behaviors, we need to really understand the causes. What are those causes which is or the reinforcers which are maintaining those behaviors.
Correct.
So unless until we understand that, we cannot really give a suggestion or give a behavior modification plan or intervention plan for that particular.
Sure. Great. All right, Aishwarya, let's wrap this up. Yeah. Aishwarya?
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, can we wrap this up, Aishwarya?
Because my sound is not coming.
Okay. Thank you so much. Then we will, wrap this up now. Swarna, thank you again.